Hey everyone, Coach Lucas here. Hope you all are doing well. Today I want to share with you the final part 3 of the video responses from the VEO Camera Giveaway that we did earlier last month. So first of all, again, thank you for all of you who have subscribed to the channel and provided the feedback. Again, I have over 20 pages of responses from players and parents of what they would like to see in the channel. And so what I'm doing in these videos is just providing some feedback and responding to those suggestions. And this is part 3, so let's go ahead and dig in. So the first part here says, Coach Lucas, as a soccer family with 2 elite players, one MLS Academy, the other one ECNL, we're always looking for things to improve our ability to parent 2 athletes with different needs and augment their current training to ensure they have a solid foundation in all sides of the game. So the biggest weakness in their current training is the mental and psychological aspects of competing at the elite level, along with strategy within their specific positions. We have found the MSM training to be very helpful and provides a framework for our kids to understand the emotions that they have versus the goals they have set to play D1 and or go pro. Suggestions to further complement the program would be sessions for parents of elite players to help us understand how to stay involved but not overstep with highly motivated kids and their coaches. Sessions to help parents and athletes to communicate better about their goals, the goals they have discussed with their coaches, and how we can support our kids while at the same time letting the athlete learn from taking responsibility of their development and pathway, and sessions to understand how coaches evaluate a player to determine if they should be starting on the starting lineup on a consistent basis or not. Yeah, so this is really good. I think the first area that I want to attack is how to structure this when within the family dynamics, how to speak with the players, how to learn about what it is that they want to accomplish long term, and also staying engaged with them to make sure that they are on track to accomplishing that. So the first thing that comes to mind to me that we have talked with a lot of families about is doing some sort of weekly assessment with the players. And it's more so of a family session where you can talk objectively about what's going on and how things are evolving. And so this is a good activity to implement. I know a lot of families that do this. I know Coach Corey, who works with us, also incorporates this in her own family, which she's found great success with. And so the goal with this is to set up a time on the schedule, a session on the schedule where everyone can communicate and share thoughts and ideas, and be transparent about it without bringing emotion into the session, which is a difficult thing to do. So if you allot a time and a place to do it, whether it's once a week or once a month or something like that, this is a really good idea it's a good strategy to put into place to help promote thoughtful and quality conversations. So in these sessions, it could be on a Sunday morning, it could be at the end of the week, it could be on the weekend ideally, and it's just, the idea around this is to talk about, reiterate what are the long-term goals, so everyone can share what it is that they want to accomplish long-term, and share how they're doing, share what their objectives were for that particular week or that particular month, share whether or not they were able to obtain those objectives for that particular week or that particular month, and share what perhaps has held them back from being able to accomplish those things. And when you could do that openly and have a discussion around that and a dialogue around that, really promotes support for one another. It promotes unique ideas and ways of thinking about things. And as you know, sometimes when you just have the time and place to just discuss that, it may not be other people's ideas, but the fact that you're just expressing those things, you're coming up with ideas yourself, and you're thinking more objectively about your own thoughts in feelings, kind of like journaling in a way. So these sessions are really good to do. I'd recommend doing that I'd recommend testing that out, seeing how it goes. Because as you know, sometimes it's pretty difficult to speak with your son or daughter about these types of things. But if you get it on the schedule, and if you talk to them, hey, what do you think about talking about these things sometime in the future? The last thing you want to do is bring these conversations up right after a training session or right after a game or right after specifically like a poor performance. You want it set in a time where everyone is emotionally stable and you can have some really good transparent dialogue. So communication is the ideal there, and then structuring it and designing it in a way where everyone can be transparent would be key and would be helpful. The next point here is about speaking with coaches, and this is a really good one that I think a lot of players should learn how to do, especially when they're starting to turn 12, 13, 14 years old. They have to start learning how to advocate for themselves because when they get to the college level, when they get to the pro level, when they get to the college level, they're going to have to talk to coaches about scholarships. They're going to have to talk to coaches about playing time. When they get to the pro level, they're going to have to talk about contracts, things of this nature. So learning how to advocate for themselves and talk with coaches is an important thing. And I found that for a lot of players, it's difficult to do. In a lot of environments, it's very difficult to approach a particular coach or a director or whatever the case may be. So there's some strategies that you can do to help with this. Number one, there's a framework that we use for the players that's really helpful. So it goes like this. The first thing that a player should do is, if they need to speak with their coach, to set the event for some time in the future, okay? And what you don't want to do is catch your coach by surprise before a game or before a training session, because if you do that, your coach is not going to allocate the time and attention that your player deserves. So if you reach out to the coach and say, hey coach, can I talk to you later this week after this practice on Thursday, or can we talk next week after the game? If you're planting the seed like that, if you're setting it for the future, the coach is more likely to give you the time and attention that you deserve. So that's rule number one, right? Next is when your player actually gets to that conversation, the first thing that they want to do is show empathy, right? Because that's a good way to start any dialogue, is to show empathy. So putting yourself in the other person's shoes, saying, hey coach, I know you've had a complex season, I know you've had a demanding season, or I know you're coaching 3 teams now, so I know it's difficult for you to keep track of all the players, but so showing empathy, putting yourself in the coach's shoes, kind of gets their guard down and allows for a more constructive conversation. So that's number 2. Point number 2 is show empathy to start the conversation. And then number 3 is being utterly transparent about what the issues are, what the thoughts are, what the problems are. And whether it's playing time or new positions or decisions that the coach made, or whatever the case is, being transparent about that. And sometimes that's the hardest part. And so you can preface that little piece with just saying, coach, this is difficult for me to talk about. So that in and of itself is transparent about how you're feeling about the dialogue, how you're feeling about this situation. And that's important, because if you can get that part off your chest, hey coach, this is difficult for me to talk about, the rest of it's going to be easy. You just need to get to that point, get over that hump, and the rest of it is going to be easy as long as you get that out. So that is a good way to continue the conversation and to be transparent about what it is that your player's having issues on. Then point number 4 is to have a proposal. The last thing you want to do is go to your coach with a bunch of problems and not have an idea of what it is that you actually want. So you have to have a proposal. Your player should have a proposal. And in this sense, the player should go, coach, these are my problems, ABC. My goal is to accomplish X by the end of the season, or my goal is to accomplish Y by the end of the year. What do I need to do in order to accomplish that? So that proposal piece guides the rest of the conversation. And the coach then can respond. And at that point, the player should shut up. They should stop talking and let the coach speak. And when I work with players on this, sometimes players say like, well, coach, Coach Lucas, he dodged the question or something. So we have to account for this variability, right? So if the coach does that, the next step for the player is to just restate the problems, and all I have to do is say, but coach, this is the problem, ABC, and this is the proposal. This is what I want to accomplish. So you just reiterate the problem and the proposal, and it basically is a different way of saying like your answer didn't answer my question, so try again, basically. So that's like a good way to go about it and a good way to approach the coach, and this is a good framework for players to learn how to advocate for themselves and conduct a conversation. The next part here is about how coaches, how to evaluate a player to determine like how they're doing. This is really good, and I think that we don't do enough of this. Like players don't do enough of this, coaches don't do enough of this, clubs don't do enough of this. They may do it once a season, they may do it once a month, but players should have feedback and reports on every game that they do. I mean, every game is an opportunity to learn and grow and develop, and with the technology these days, there's no reason why players can't get feedback after every game, constructive, actual, tangible feedback. And so there's a video that Coach Phil, who's on my team of coaches, there's a video that Coach Phil made that breaks down the key criteria by position. So the key playing criteria is by position, and you can actually take this criteria and turn it into an assessment. So, if it's a center back, it's their ability to hit long balls, it's their ability to intercept passes, it's their ability to stay connected with the other players in the back line, it's their ability to get forward when the ball changes direction. So breaking down the player criteria, and then the player and whoever else may want to assess them, maybe it's the parent, maybe it's a coach, whoever's viewing the game, can rate them on how they did within those criteria. And then the player can kind of cross-reference to see how they feel about their criteria and then what other people's opinions are about the criteria. And that acts as a third party and a way for the player to discern between how they think they're doing and how they're actually doing. And it's a really constructive way for them to find what it is that they need to work on, identify their priorities, and therefore put in the work to grow and develop moving forward. So I'll put the link for that. I'll make note of that right now to put the link for that video in the description of this video so you guys can access that and check that out. All right, let's see where we were. Cool. And then the next one's marketing. So marketing the athlete is really cool because this is a big deal. And I think it's a topic that a lot of people don't talk about quite a lot. I think there's a lot of conversation about like highlight tapes. And on the contrary, there's a lot of conversation around like club opportunities and club pathways. And what's funny about this is like, as long as your player is growing and developing adequately, you don't need to worry as to whether or not there's a pathway at your club. And I think the pathway that these clubs are promoting is a good it's a marketing scheme that they use to attract new players. And so I say that with a grain of salt because obviously a lot of clubs are successful with growing and developing players. But be careful of this because I think a lot of parents make decisions based upon whether or not a club has a pathway, and they're forgetting that the key priority here is growth and development. So where I'm getting at, what I'm getting at rather, is if your player's at a club that doesn't have a pathway to MLS, but they're growing and developing adequately, you can take footage of their game at 16, 17, 18 years old, and you can send that footage to around the country. You could send it to anyone you want. You could send it to coaches everywhere. You could send it to whoever you want. And to do this properly, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before about the player criteria and breaking down the player criteria and using game footage, picking out moments that positively reflect the key criteria and compiling that into a nice highlight tape that you can deliver to coaches around the country. And the other piece to this is leveraging status and experience. So leveraging status and experience. And what I mean by this is if your player, let's say your player has traveled abroad and has spoken to coaches in Europe, right? You can leverage that when approaching new coaches here in the US. Let's say your player plays ODP Regional. You can leverage that experience and that status when approaching coaches here in the US. And just building a resume, kind of. You're building that resume, you're showing that your player has had these experiences, and that can earn tryouts, that can earn a second look. So highlight tapes, player criteria, and leveraging experience and status. This is the way to grow and develop. This is the way to market. This is the way to think about how to put your player in the best position possible. Cool. All right, let's see here. A couple more things. So this person wants to learn more about Coach Lucas. I think it's critical that the players meet the coach, learn about the coach. This gives them more interest into the tactics and the strategies. Okay, good. Okay. Okay, that's not a question, but a statement. Good. Let's see what else we got. Okay, this looks like a good one. Okay, this is a good one. So, my player is an incredible academic and has athletic skills. He also struggles with anxiety issues and that hold him back sometimes. He struggles to let that true warrior out sometimes, and I feel holds back or holds something in so as to not draw lots of attention to himself. As a parent, I struggle with how to teach him to let that excitement and creativity dominance out without seeming like an arrogant kid or drawing too much attention to himself and cause anxious moments. I would love for him to learn how to channel that skill and mindset into a leadership role and allow him to show everything he has in his matches. Yeah, so this is a great question, and this is my specialty, so thank you, Danny. So a couple things here. Number one, one is struggles with anxiety. So that issue needs to be, we need to find the root cause of that, because that anxiety is coming from somewhere. And anxiety really is the anticipation of pain, right? So if a player's anxious, they're worried about something negative happening. And that worry of something negative happening likely stems from something previous that happened that was painful, and that the player doesn't want to let that happen again. So identifying that and talking to the player on trying to get a good understanding of what's making them anxious. Is it the fear of the coach yelling at them? Is it the fear of the coach benching them? Is it the fear of their teammates, letting their teammates down? And so once you can identify it, so you got to pull back the layers to identify the root cause and then you can address that root cause head on. So that's number one. Number two is this player struggles to let the warrior out sometimes. So this is a really good way of putting it, because when you look at a game, when you look at a match, like, it's competitive, it's ultra competitive, and you really need to have that warrior type mindset in order to play effectively. And I see a lot of players that grow up to be smart. You know, their parents teach them to be smart and kind and friendly and humble and polite. And these are good characteristics, right? Like, these are going to serve the player really well in school, at the grocery store, you know, at the library, in everyday life. That's great. But on the pitch, these characteristics aren't going to serve the player. On the pitch, you need true competitive, primal, killer instincts that are going to allow your player to play most effectively. Like that, those are the characteristics that are truly needed for your player to thrive in a match. So what the strategy, the tool that we use to help players with this is called the alter ego. It's a character that your player develops that gives them permission. So when it comes to the game, comes to the training, it gives them permission to adopt this new character that allows them to shed away the old characteristics that their parents taught them for 10, 12, 15, 20 years and adopt new characteristics that are going to serve them in the match. So it gives them permission, and that's the big key, because it says here, like, how do he holds something in as to not draw lots of attention to himself, right? Because the player these are characteristics that are frowned upon in everyday life. These are characteristics that this particular player was told not to do growing up. You're supposed to be kind to your sister. You're supposed to be nice to your brother. You're supposed to share at school. And in a game, like, all of those rules go out the window. So the player needs permission to act accordingly, right? So the way to do this is for the player to identify a time where they were playing at their best, because that's the most closely related example, the best example that they can come up with to structure the exercise that I'm about to share with you. So the player has to come up with a point in time, a game that they were just playing out of their mind, and come up with the characteristics that support that game. Making tackles, being physical, focused, determined, communicating with teammates, accurate passing, sprinting to every ball, whatever the characteristics are, and then come up with the name of the character. Some players choose the lion, the tiger, the panther, the cheetah. Some players choose pro athletes like Messi or Ronaldo. Some players choose their own name, like Lucas 2.0. And once you have the name of the character and you have a list of those characteristics, all your player has to do is recite this and tap into this character before training and before games, so they can transition between themselves, their ego, the role that they play in everyday life, to the new role that they need to play out on the pitch. So that's the alter ego tool, and that's really effective in bringing out that competitive, true warrior. And when it comes to leadership, this is the last point I'll make on this one, is when it comes to leadership, it's important for the players to understand that it starts with leadership of self. So there's 3 layers of leadership: leadership of self, leadership of family, leadership of community. And in this context, community means teammates and teams. It could mean classmates, could mean your neighborhood, so whatever the case is. But the first part of this is leadership of self, and I think it's a common misconception that when we think of leadership, we automatically think about telling other people what to do. And that's part of that is flawed, because that's not where you start. You have to start with leadership of self. If you can't be, and you see this with people who are assigned let's go in the political realm, for example, who are assigned political roles but are clearly not leaders of themselves. You can pick it up right away, right? And so it discredits their leadership abilities, and it disqualifies them from being a true leader. So your player needs to focus on being a leader of themselves. They need good routines. They need good habits. They need to learn how to get rid of bad habits. They need to learn how to establish a schedule. They need to learn how to train and put the work in. They need to learn how to have good relationships with the people around them, communicate well, these types of things. So if the player has a system of working with themselves, which is exactly what it is that I teach players to do, this will allow them to become a leader of themselves, and by nature, this helps them become a leader of others. So that's what comes to mind for me is when it comes to leaders. And so I think this is good for now. Hopefully this was valuable. We're almost at the half-hour mark, so I appreciate you guys. I've got some new camera equipment today, so hopefully the picture's better and cleaner, and for your viewing experience. So hopefully that's better. Let me know in the comments if it's better. Let me know if you'd like it. Hit the like button if this was valuable. And I think that's pretty much it for today. So let me know in the comments if you have questions about anything that I mentioned. I'll put in the description the link to Coach Phil's playing criteria. And that's it. That's part 3 of the VEO Camera Responses. I'm going to be announcing the winner of the VEO Camera very soon, within the next couple days. So stay tuned for that. Do me a favor, if you found this valuable, share it with a teammate or another parent if you know someone that might find this valuable. And hope you guys have a great day. Take care. Talk soon.